I am sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but many popular diet hacks that you see around don't work. Unfortunately, you getting a leaner body comes down to eating less over time. And sure, there are some minor hacks that you can implement to achieve that, but many quick fixes or boosts in terms of like burning fat overnight don't work. Let's break it down though. Skipping breakfast. Now that's one of those things that back in the day was a bad thing, now it's a good thing. I think also some people now are saying again that it's a bad thing. I am a bit lost. However, when we look at the literature, especially the literature looking at whether eating most of your calories later in the day or earlier in the day and whether that has an effect on your body composition, we see that there are no differences there. The slight difference is that when people eat the majority of their food later at night, they sometimes are a bit hungrier than if they eat it earlier in the day. So skipping breakfast may actually not be the best idea if you tend to feel hungrier at the end of the day and have less control. But at the end of the day, skipping breakfast is not a hack, and not skipping breakfast is not also a hack. But overall, if you like eating breakfast, eat your breakfast. That's the takeaway there. The science is pretty clear on the fact that it's not going to play a big role, because at the end of the day, we all remember the classic don't eat after 6 p.m. because whatever you eat will turn into fat. I am pretty sure that by now most of you are aware that that's a myth. If you're not, it's a myth. The opposite is also a myth. Everything is a myth. Wake up, the Matrix. Whoop, this is a dream. It is still 1963 and you're seeing this dream. You're watching some bald guy on this platform called YouTube. Nothing exists. Wake up. Oh my God, it's 1963. Great time to be alive. Good years. Anywho's, intermittent fasting on that note, because skipping breakfast is a form of intermittent fasting, unfortunately. And this comes from Mr. Fasting himself. Not really, but I like fasting. I do fast every day to an extent because I'm not a big breakfast person, at least for the most part. In the past, I've done as much as 20 hours of fasting per day consistently for a few months, and I've also done the occasional 36-hour fast here and there simply to manage my calories, not for any magical health reason. And unfortunately, again, when we look at the literature on fasting, there's nothing magical in any way, shape or form. Now, in some cases, in obese individuals, there does seem to be a slight benefit to just being on a calorie deficit. But as far as most of you are concerned out there, intermittent fasting is just another way for you to manage your calories. That is it. In terms of appetite, in terms of fat loss, in terms of weight loss, there is nothing to it. More and more data is coming out on fasting showing the exact same thing. It's fine, but it's no magical bullet whatsoever. On this note though, allow me to note that intermittent fasting is also not a gains killer, and you can totally do it and even train fasted if you like, if that's what floats your boat. So if you like fasting, totally fine, both from a muscle growth and from a fat loss standpoint, but it's not mandatory, nor will it result in greater fat loss than if you were to just eat less. Which brings me to low carb diets. Low carb diets, still a thing for many people. I'm not sure how. The insulin model of obesity, the idea that eating carbohydrates raises insulin, which therefore stops the process of burning fat and will make you store fat. This is something that people still believe, but when we look at the evidence, when we look at studies that have compared people eating either low carbs or high carbs and are both in a calorie deficit, those who eat low carbs lose more weight at the beginning of those studies simply because they're eating less carbs. Therefore, they hold on to more body water, so they lose a bit more water, they lose a bit more weight, not necessarily body fat, but at the end, higher carb and lower carb lose the same amount of body fat and same amount of weight. Being on a low carb diet can also come with some slight side effects in the sense that if you're not used to low carb, you may feel a bit more tired or even a bit lightheaded at sometimes. Look, it's not a big deal. If you like low carb, it's perfectly fine as long as you're still consuming some vegetables and you're somehow managing to consume enough fiber, which is the big asterisk. And I'm going to tie this in with the carnivore diet as well, which is a form of a low carb diet or a form of keto diet. The idea that eating mostly animal products, no fruits, no vegetables, and minimal fiber is one, not going to give you any magical fat loss benefits and may have deleterious effects on your health. Fiber is pretty important for overall health. Eating fruits and vegetables come with a ton of benefits, and although you don't need to necessarily become vegan or fully plant-based, including a lot of plants and fruits in your diet is a very, very good idea. The evidence simply says that. A good old boring diet where you still eat some animal products, and keep in mind dairy is great, eggs are great, salmon, different cuts of meat, great, especially in moderation. But please eat your fruits, eat your vegetables, because from a fat loss standpoint, they will allow you to feel fuller. They will add volume to your food, make food more satiating, and at the same time improve your health. So low carb, keto, carnivore, from a fat loss perspective, minimizing carbohydrate intake, aside from the fact that you're not gonna see any fat loss benefits magically simply because insulin, yada, 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 you're also talking about diets that are not necessarily easy to integrate into real life, especially if you're planning on having that real life after you're done with your diet. So completely cutting out a macronutrient is a bit dumb in my idea. Again though, open-minded pack here for all of the viewers out there. If you enjoy eating low carb, whatever, just keep in mind, it's likely not the best way to go about things. Moving on to fat burners. And these are still a thing for some people. I wanted to throw this out there in case you're watching it. Look, any over-the-counter fat burner is likely going to be caffeine, some herbal tea, plant extracts, and generally ingredients that at the very best, may have a tiny marginal effect on assisting your fat loss journey if you're on a deficit at the very best, which for most of you will mean nothing. So don't spend money on any fat burner, and obviously do not take this as a suggestion to go for the under-the-counter fat burners. Sure, those may be effective, but you don't want to die, I assume, and you don't want the side effects. And hey, please stay natty, stick to the deficit for a while. It's your best bet at losing fat over time. Other diet hacks, fasted cardio is another diet hack that some people still do. It's still a thing in some circles, especially the more, alpha male self-improvement circles. Fasted cardio will not do more for your fat loss journey than non-fasted cardio, and cardio in general should be part of your exercise routine for the health benefits, not necessarily to guide fat loss per se. Manage your calories, eat less, eat plenty of protein, lift weights, do your cardio for health, but overall it's the deficit that your diet will mainly dictate and will allow you to burn fat. Fasted cardio is gimmicky, I get it. You may feel superior than others when you wake up at 6 a.m. and go for fasted cardio and then eat eggs and whatever off of a wooden cutting board. But at the end of the day, hey, you're just placeboing yourself, which fair enough. If you like that, do it, but you're not doing anything more than if you were to do cardio later in the day. Which brings me to the next point, excessive cardio as a diet loss hack. You on the Stairmaster for minutes or hours on hours, if you're in a deficit, may at some point not be doing much. Then hear me out here. This comes down to the constrained energy model. Essentially the idea that when you're in a deficit and you're doing a ton of exercise, there comes a point where more exercise will not necessarily burn more calories. Take this with a grain of salt, because again, you should be looking at exercising for the health benefits of it. But if you're already in a solid deficit, doing more and more cardio and thinking that, okay, if I go to the gym and blast even more Stairmaster or more elliptical or even walk 30,000 steps per day, I'm gonna burn more, you may be looking at diminishing returns or maybe no returns at all. I cannot tell you with 100% certainty, but the data is pretty consistently showing us that when you are in a calorie deficit and already doing plenty of exercise, doing even more may not give you that much. So if you want to lose weight faster, eat even less, because your body will try to conserve energy for other tasks if you keep doing more exercise. And at the end of the day, the physical activity and your overall movement throughout the day may be reduced as a result of you doing more exercise. So you may spend those extra 30 minutes running, cycling, whatever, but then throughout the day, subconsciously, you may end up moving much less, sitting more, be standing still a lot more on the couch versus fidgeting, which will then balance those calories out and will also leave you feeling a bit disappointed because, hey, you're doing all this extra work and you're struggling there on the Stairmaster, and where's the extra fat loss? So excessive cardio, likely not the best way to approach fat loss. At this point, allow me to note that if you want to do your excessive cardio and have the smartest coach in your pocket, take it in consideration and still train you effectively using resistance training, aka guide your muscle growth journey. myadapt.com, baby, for the smartest coach in your pocket. If you're losing weight, maintaining weight, gaining weight, MyAdapt will cover all your needs as far as muscle growth goes. Check it out. Or if you want to lose a ton of fat, transform your physique, and become the beast that you've always wanted, DRPAK.com for coaching, including the latest fat burner that I've made, which is literally an empty bottle. Lastly, things like ab belts, creams, or anything of that sort that you may have seen is BS. Now, I'm not going to expand on this. It's 2025. Those things do not work. If they did, trust me, you would be hearing about them all the time. As it stands, they're just expensive placebos, waste of money, and I'm sure that most of you are already aware of that. Cool. That's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Unfortunately, no magic diet loss hack. Stick to the diet, stick to the deficit for a while, formula, and as long as you stick to the deficit, you will get there. There's no way around it. Your metabolism is fine, you are fine, just stick to it. Don't fall for the idea that you will eventually plateau for good. The scale will not respond here and there. Just stay the course and you will eventually see that drop again, and over the course of a few months you can lose a ton of fat as long as you're consistent with your deficit. Keep lifting weights to maintain or even grow muscle. Eat protein, don't overthink training. A few hard sets per week are enough for you to maintain or even make gains. And at the end of the day, myadapt.com if you want somebody else to handle your training, or drpak.com if you want me to handle your training, and I'll see you guys next time.